All right, exit interview for Parker Kelly, a favorite of Jacques Martin. Parker Kelly's season was one of consistency, 80 games for him, and even played on the second line for a couple nights. I don't think that's a recipe for success long term, but Parker Kelly showed that he could be a guy that coaches rely on to play the right way, do the right thing. 8 goals, 10 assists for 18 points. He was -8 this season with a 47% expected goals at 5-on-5. How would you describe the season that was for Parker Kelly?
I think it's going to be very interesting going from Jacques Martin to Travis Green for Parker Kelly, because I think Parker Kelly can thrive under both these guys, right? Like there's some players where you're looking and you're like, this switch is going to affect them. We talked to Noodles about that. But Parker Kelly, this guy has been an absolute workhorse his entire career, an undrafted player that has 177 games played under his belt, 4 seasons in the NHL. And he's not a big guy either. It's 6 foot tall, 187 pounds. He doesn't have that size that Mark Kastelik has that would make things easy for him to be a fourth line center or player, sorry. So if you could take Parker Kelly's mentality and put it into Mark Kastelik's body, you'd have a perfect fourth liner, in my opinion, right? Like Kelly's a guy that goes out there, he bangs bodies, second on the team in hits, only behind Brady Tkachuk. Now, the gap here is pretty big. Brady Tkachuk with 294 hits, Parker Kelly with 171. But he's a guy that bangs bodies out there. He's blocking shots with 67, good for 8th on the team. He is one of the big parts of this team's penalty kill, as his time on ice on the penalty kill is one of the tops here. 3rd on the team with 175 minutes, only behind Sanderson and Artem Zub. So he's the top forward on the penalty kill. So this guy brings a lot to the Ottawa Senators as far as like your bottom line player goes. And I think he can have success doing that. I like Parker Kelly. We're going to see what happens with him in the offseason with his next contract. But I think this is a guy that can stay in this lineup and at the very least should be an extra forward for this team.
Parker Kelly is arbitration eligible as a restricted free agent. He was making $762,000 last year. I think you completely nailed it with being able to combine Kelly and Kastelik into one player.
Yeah.
You could have a really good fourth liner with that. It's just about finding the way for Parker Kelly to impact the game at different parts of it. Now, you mentioned 171 hits. That's great. Funny enough, that's actually a far cry below his hits per game last year. He had one more hit in 25 less games last year. He was hitting everything, had 172 hits in 55 games. But you know what? I'll trade that based on 1 goal last year versus 8 this year. So you know what? Step forward for Parker Kelly, undrafted, 2-time Jonathan Petra Award winner for hardest worker at development camp, a leader in the locker room. I'd imagine he's a guy who could. I think there was one game where they came back. Was it against Nashville at home where they said Parker Kelly stood up in the intermission and let the guys hear it. He's a guy who Claude Giroux's been on record saying everybody in the locker room respects him. His kind of the way he got to the National Hockey League, got to score a goal, I believe, in Edmonton this year, which is his hometown or close to it in Camrose. So I think all of that adds up to a guy who he's like an organizational depth piece, right? I think that every organization has these guys, but for Ottawa, it's good that it's Parker Kelly, and I hope that they can figure out 1 or 2 year contract. Not the kind of guy you're going to lock into a 3, 4, 5 year deal, but he is someone who he's working hard. He's trying to get better every day, and he does have a bit of upside. He's a pest, and he could be a guy that in a playoff series, you're happy that you have him on your team. So I'm hoping for more of the same for Parker Kelly this season than last. Maybe I'd like to see him do a little bit more on the penalty kill, because as we know, the team as a whole wasn't great, but he is aggressive at the top and pressures defenders to make plays, and has been able to get a shorthanded goal in two shorthanded goals this past season. So all that adds up to a guy who I would like to see back with the Ottawa Senators. I need either one or Casty in the top 12. I think the other should be the 13th forward, and it's no worse for wear if that alternates here and now. And let's get some final thoughts. What you thought of Parker Kelly, or what your expectations are for him next season?
Yeah, I think funny enough too, I'm pretty sure Kelly and Casty live together, so they can definitely build a lot more chemistry on that fourth line, Ross. I think it would be so great if you could find a veteran mentor for them on that fourth line, like a guy, like a similar guy to who's the part of the fourth line on the Islanders that have been together for years, Martin Cizikas and Clutterbuck.
Clutterbuck, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously those guys probably aren't getting broken up, but
Matt
a
Martin,
guy, well, there you go. A guy like that's done that role for a long time and can really drill into their heads. Guys, you guys are going to be on minimum deals, 1 or 2 deals. If you want to stay in this league for a long time, you got to grind and you got to play the right way. A guy that can really teach them that. So I think that would be one of those veteran forwards you're talking about, Ross, that could have an impact on this team.
All right, and that is the season that was for Parker Kelly.